Alrighty, so we're here today with Ken Boyter, who is a YouTube person, a writer type, an actor type, and probably does some more things that I don't know about because Google. So tell us a little bit about yourself and what you're working on at the moment.
Hello there. Thank you for having me. Very excited. Yes, I do quite a lot of things, and the current thing that I'm working on is actually a game book. I don't know if you remember the fighting fantasy game books.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, when I was a kid, I've got a few here actually. When I was a kid, those really sparked my interest. In fact, they were probably responsible, that and Terry Pratchett, of actually getting me reading. You know, let alone just reading fantasy, but just actually reading.
Right.
I don't know if you remember Forest of Doom. Probably backwards.
Okay. Yeah.
So these were amazing, where you choose your own adventure. And I just fell in love with them, and I fell in love with the illustrations, lovely little black and white illustrations. So fast forward years later, I would write my own one because I've been playing them basically for nostalgic reasons. Yeah. And I got back into them and then found that there's still loads of people that are playing them.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so I thought I would write my own, which is set in my fantasy world of Edra. So that's what I'm up to at the moment, yeah.
Okay, I didn't know that they were still around. I know they existed, but I thought it was mostly just the older ones. That's really cool.
Oh, you have discovered a rich seam. Honestly, there's loads of... I think there's a lot of people that are my age who remember them and thought, you know what were those books? And they've Googled them and then discovered that there was other series at the time. There's the Lone Wolf books as well by Joe Dever. And then they've probably written their own, because the latest one that I've got is by Jonathan Green, and that was Beowulf Beast Slayer. So
all right.
Yeah.
Wow.
Nice bloke on the. What he's done is he's taken sort of old classic stories and then made them into choose your own adventure books. Yeah. And also they reproduced the fighting fantasy ones recently with new covers, new illustrations. Okay. So the genre is alive and well and kicking.
Yes. Interesting. Of course, with all of the modern technology, I imagine the genre has changed just a touch.
Well, I think it's one of those things, because Steve Jackson and Ian Livingstone, they did fighting fantasy ones. They were also running Games Workshop at the time, so this was like mid 80s, and they were running Games Workshop during the day and then going home at night and then writing these books. And this was pre kind of Lara Croft. This was pre computer games really kind of breaking out of the mold. Right. And then Ian Livingstone then went on to create, be part of the team that created Lara Croft, which obviously is the next generation, because it's more open world. You can sort of go off and do little things. And you got other video games like Grand Theft Auto, where again you can go off and do your own thing. I guess the most fantasy related one is Skyrim. For me, that is an amazing game. And I just thought, actually, that's ultimately a choose your own adventure, because yes, they've got quests, but you don't have to do it in a certain way. But with a book, obviously, you kind of have to go. You get a couple of choices each turn, but not complete freedom. Right. So I think video like Skyrim is the next generation of all of that. Yeah. But if you want to kick it old, back to the books.
Yes, books. Books are always fun. Okay, so this is taking place in your world of Edra. Are you using some of the same characters, or is it just completely different?
Yeah, that's what I love. When you create worlds, because I realised when I started writing fantasy that part of the fun, and quite a lot of the fun, is actually creating the world, isn't it? Yeah. And then once you've got the world, are you not too good at? Not like creating the?
No, that's. For a language nerd, that's kind of right up my alley.
There you go. Well, there you go. Well, Tolkien was a language tutor, wasn't he?
Yep.
So he created the world pretty much of Middle Earth just to house his languages, didn't
yes.
he?
Yeah.
So, but I'm rubbish at languages, so that's I don't do the languages. But so I love building the world, and then you sort of start populating it. So then you start thinking, that character lives in that city or that town or that village or whatever. So then I realized when I started writing short stories, so my actual book, here's my actual main book, I then started writing short stories and then thinking, oh yeah, what was that minor character that I sort of mentioned in the book? Let's maybe focus them in the short story. So that's exactly what I'm going to be doing with the game books. Obviously, the reader is the hero, is the main person.
Right.
But I'm going to be putting characters from the books and the short stories into the game book, so that if you do start reading the main book, and then you've also started reading the short stories, you kind of go, oh, hang on, we met that person in that, and I really like that, because then they feel like they're really rounded. So then they don't just exist in one little timeline, in a story.
Yeah.
They've actually got other timelines going on that you don't know about until you discover them.
Well, I mean, multiple timelines, it's always fun figuring out what people are doing at different times. Yep. Oh, great.
Yeah. As long as you don't confuse the reader, obviously.
But that's so much fun. Yeah.
Leaving a mystery for the reader. I do like leaving a mystery. So in one of my short stories recently, I've sort of alluded to the ending of it will allude to something that actually happens in book 3 of the main book series. So you should, if you've read the main book series, you might then think, oh, actually, hang on, that was alluded to way back then. Oh my God, it's actually planned out. It's not just happening in random.
Well, that's good. Planning is good, I guess. So how are you?
Stories? You write as well, don't you? Do you plan your stories? Or?
Yeah, no plannings. I mean, except for the vague, oh, that would be fun. Let's try that for a while. And so everything comes together after the fact. And then if my brain is working correctly, it all works. If not, my editor fixes it.
Oh, I see. The wizard, the magic wizard.
Yes. How is editing a game book? Because I imagine it's going to be different editing it, different paths that you take.
Yeah. Well, I did have a little bit of experience of writing one previously because, as you mentioned, I do a YouTube channel called The Bottled Imp. And that is all about fantasy, exploring the realms of fantasy, basically. And sometimes we do these crazy live shows that go on for like a couple of hours, and we have different segments. We have, quiz questions. We have sort of mini book reviews. We have little outside broadcasts that we edit in. And in fact, we're talking about doing a Christmas special again this year. And one of those, I thought, that'd be quite fun if Julian, who co-hosts those, if he actually played a Choose Your Own Adventure book. So I wrote them all out, basically with him in mind, and then how do you get around? How do you actually work it all out? So then I just thought, well, what I need to do is work out the ending. So work out the quest, work out what's going on, work out the ending, work out the path of actually how you win the book.
Yeah.
And then sort of think, well, actually, I could have a little diversion there, and if they go off there, then they might fall down a trap and kill themselves. If they go down here, they might get, caught up in some gambling and get
just
cut because they've
caught up in some gambling because,
Yeah. But if you want the dungeon, you got nothing else to do, have you? And you see some goblins playing cards, you might as well join in.
Yeah, exactly. Although I have a feeling cheating them out of their money would probably not go well.
No. So that's how I'm going to do it. But then I also realised, but because that one sort of copied the Warlock of Firetop Mountain, the fighting fantasy combat system, because you get to roll dice and you get to attack monsters, all the fun things. For this one, for my one, I thought, well, I don't want to just copy someone else.
Right.
So how can I make it different? Because I thought, well, I need to work out all of the mechanics before you actually write the story. Because if you start writing the story and you've not worked out, you know, various things like combat or how many objects you can carry, or, you know, have you got a magic system in there, then you can't really, you know, you have to work it all out beforehand in order to put it in. Right. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Huh.
So I've spent the last couple of days working out a combat system that is loose based on this, but I've changed it enough for me to think, actually, yeah, I think that's changed enough. And worked out all the attributes, worked out, you know, do they have to eat? I've got a system where they have to sleep. So every now and again it will say, you need to sleep. And then what I thought I'd do, and this is sort of borrowed from Dungeons and Dragons, where they didn't have to roll 12 or 2d6s, and then depending on the outcome there'll be a list of sleep encounters. So then whatever they roll, they'll look at it, and it might be, oh, you had a lovely night's sleep, gain 2 vigor points, or it might be you had a nightmare, lose 2 stamina, that kind of thing.
Ooh, bummer.
Yeah,
that'll be fun to do, to see it live. That would be highly entertaining.
Yeah. Well, the thing was, I then because I'm an actor as well, I then started to think about, actually, you could do this as a live show, as an actual stage show. Yeah. And so I'm sort of thinking as a live stage. Yeah, exactly. And but don't because I don't want them to steal the ideas.
Well, no, naturally not. But how would you go about doing it as a live stage show? I mean, you'd have to do an improv show instead of a rehearsed script.
Well, luckily I'm pretty good at improv, so that's good. I do a lot of murder mysteries, so I'm pretty used to improving around, you know, a situation. Sure. Even though they are scripted, there's still areas where we can improv. Right. Well, what I thought was that well, actually, the story, you pretty much do have to script it and nail it down. And the way you do it is, I thought, well, they could have, you know, like things to hold up. So, you know, if they've got like a, I don't know, let's say they've got like a paddle like this, you know, not a book, paddle. And then one colour's red, one colour's green, and then they've got another one in the other hand. One colour's orange, one colour's blue. And then you just say, so do you want to open the treasure chest? You know, vote green, whatever colour it is. And then they hold it all up, and then you can count it really quickly. And then you can, with blue, you can do the same. And so all the choices, you should be able to hopefully add up pretty quickly. And then the good thing about it is that because it's sort of interactive, right? Yeah, and you can then ad lib, because I would be one of the characters from my book, right? So I've got a storyteller character called Loquacious Macabre, and there he is there.
Accurate representation.
Yeah, you might recognise him. Yeah. And that's his assistant, Stumps. Stumps. Who is there? Yep. Yeah. Yep. Who actually was based on the illustrator Rich Nan. So if you love, he's done some amazing illustrations. There we go. There's another one.
I like that. That's great.
Yeah, and so I thought, yeah, I could be the character Loquacious, and he's quite a grumpy character. He's sort of a bit, you know, he kind of disrespects people. So I thought that would be quite good as a compare, because then I can be to the audience, you know, and they quite like that, you know. Yeah, yeah. Ooh, yeah. I did I was in Dublin a few years back, and there was a video gaming session where they had an audience and the person playing the video game, and whenever they came to a choice, the audience would pull out their phones and vote, and whatever choice would happen. And so it ended up really badly. This poor person got like mauled and attacked, and every wrong choice could possibly be made. It was great fun. Yeah, exactly. That's the thing. I want to steer clear of technology, because I just think it goes wrong. If you really want it to work, it will never work. Yes. Yeah. So I just thought, and I quite like the tactile nature of kind of holding up your hands, you know, and voting. Because I was up in Edinburgh, I took a play up to Edinburgh last year called the Storyteller's Apprentice, and again that all set in the world of Edra, and I actually based it on Loquacious, and it's sort of loosely based on the book.
Right.
So it's the storyteller and his assistant or apprentice Stumps, and the actual story. That was a good sort of exercise to do, because it's like this book is all in verse, by the way. It's all poetry.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. So it's like Beowulf. Yeah. So I wanted this book to have that storytelling feel, that you're around a campfire,
right.
and it's cold, and you got your marshmallows or whatever, and you're just listening to a storyteller, and he's expressing himself or herself, and very animated. So it's got that feel to it. So then it was like, okay, well, let's try and transfer that to the stage.
Uh-huh.
And what we realized was that you still need an emotional story. Yes. So although what I developed was with the help of a few other people, was to actually have at the heart of it the relationship between Loquacious and Stumps.
Mm-hmm.
Then there's actually 3 separate sort of fairy tales woven within the story.
Ah.
So Loquacious, he's like this cynical, grumpy old storyteller who has never been very rich. He still needs to go around the taverns and pubs earning his money telling stories. He's a little bit of a drunk, maybe. He likes to drink. And he keeps promising Stumps, his apprentice, one day you'll get to tell a story. But he's got no intention of doing that. No. And he basically just treats Stumps like a slave. Wash his clothes, get him his beer, all of that. And then so obviously the audience hate Loquacious, but they love Stumps, and that's what you want to do. And then the whole thing is, will Stumps actually rebel and just sort of go, right, I'm leaving, or in order to get to tell the story, or will she not, or he, who, depending on the actor, actually get to tell their story. So that's the whole crutch of it. So I don't want to give too much away, just in case I do it as an audio, but yeah,
I like it. Good fun. And when you took this up to Edinburgh, was this festival season?
Yeah, I'd always wanted to act since I was a kid. I went up to the Fringe because it's just I don't know,
crazy.
Scotland. Yeah, it's a beautiful country. All my family are Scottish. I've got relatives up there. I live in England, but all my actual relatives are Scottish. And so I get free accommodation, which was lovely. And so thank you to my uncles and aunties for helping me out there. Free accommodation
at the Fringe. Ooh, you want out there.
I know. Man. No, it was great. But I'd gone to the Fringe loads over, just as a punter, as a viewer, as an audience, and really loved it. But I always thought, one day I want to go up there and it'd be great. And so to write my own show, put it up, make all the creative decisions, was pretty much a dream come true. And it was really exciting. And you got all the buzz of the other shows going on. Right. And because we were part of a theatre, that were running other venues, we also got free tickets to go and see other shows.
Ooh.
That was really cool. So we saw loads of shows that I wouldn't really necessarily go and see, but you think, well, why not? It's free. Let's go and find out what this is.
Right.
And the other thing I love about it is because there's so many. There's something like 4,000 shows get put on at the Edinburgh Fringe. Yeah.
Well, the population of the city, triples? I think goes from
something like it's
number
crazy.
to a very large number. It's amazing.
Yeah. But I love the fact that there's something for everybody. There's all sorts of... So whatever you're into, you will find it there.
Yeah.
And I love the fact that sometimes you can see some really rubbish stuff.
Amazing how much...
Yeah. But the good thing about that is that then, like Vicky, who was the actress that played Stumps, Vicky Holden Swindon, we would take turns in picking stuff, and it always ended up that she seemed to pick the rubbish stuff and I seemed to pick the good stuff. But hey, so I would go, right, that's an hour of my life I'm not getting back, thanks. But what it did give us quite a lot of confidence, because you think, well, we know ours must be better than that. It's got to be better than that, Yeah,
that's a good starting point.
Yeah, so it kind of gave us confidence in a perverse kind of way. But equally, we saw some amazing shows that were just brilliant, that were just, full of creativity, full of excitement, full of, emotion, and just really talented people out there. So if you ever get the chance to go to the Edinburgh Fringe, totally recommend it.
Fringe is fantastic. I try to avoid it simply because there are lots of people, and accommodation costs you an arm, a leg, and a kidney. But I have been to the pre-Fringe in July, which was quite entertaining.
Yeah,
walking up and down the Royal Mile, doing watching the buskers. Definitely fun.
Yeah. Oh, there's some amazing street performers, absolutely brilliant, talented performers, and there are a lot. There's a lot of comedians that start out there and they build their careers from the Fringe. A lot of actors up there, and they've done, they act, then make it onto telly, and so it's a lot. It's a real, chance to sort of, move your career on. But again, like anything, it's kind of publicity. How do you get people to know who you are? We flyered for 2 or 3 hours a day.
Oh wow!
And we were handing out 300 flyers a day just to try and fill a theatre of 40 people.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, wow. And it's tough because there's so much competition.
Yes.
So that's the downside. There's so much competition, but it's good fun though.
Oh, absolutely. Oh, Edinburgh any time of year is good fun, but that's beside the point.
Yeah.
Anyways, so you said your book was in verse.
Yes.
How was that? What did you style it off of?
Well, I wasn't one for. I never really liked poetry, to be honest. But when I was a kid, we were a couple of years a little bit, music and culture sort of comes over from America a couple of years later. And so hip hop, or we used to call it electro music. I don't know if people knew that.
It's a little bit different genre these days.
Yeah, but back in the day, it was still finding its feet. And it wasn't very commercial, even in America when we were still into it. So we used to listen to sort of, lesser known radio stations that would play it. And so I got into hip hop, and then I started writing my own lyrics, to sort of rap. I got into sort of rapping. And little did I realise that I could have been, if I'd carried on, I could have been like huge, because I was like 15 writing my lyrics, and this was like...
Oh, no.
1986, 87, I could have been huge.
That was the time period for that.
Yeah. If only I'd stuck with it. But obviously my parents wouldn't have understood it. It wasn't a career. You couldn't just go and be a rapper. Yeah, of course, that'd be a good career choice. So that wasn't going to happen. But I really enjoyed the process of writing verse, as a rap. But then what happened is, it must have been about 10 years ago, I managed to go full-time acting and writing and various other bits and pieces. And I happened to know somebody that owned a software company that was developing interactive kids books.
Ooh.
Yeah. And this was kind of early on with all of that. And what they wanted, the company was Polish, and I knew one of the people, and their English wasn't brilliant. So, they had a traditional Polish story that was out of copyright, and they said, could you write us in verse a full kind of story based on this story? And they gave me literally, like a rough outline of what happened.
Right.
And I said, okay, well, maybe I can embellish it, maybe I can change it. And I really, really enjoyed the process of thinking up a rhyming poetry for a story. I hadn't thought of doing that for a story. For raps, yes, but not for a story. I really loved it. And as I was writing it, I thought, do you know what? I want to go a little bit darker, more fantasy, because this was very straight kind of story.
Right.
I want to go more fantasy, more kind of gritty, and create wild and wacky characters that I knew that would be too much for them. So consequently, after I finished that, I then went, right, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to finish this project, because I did have a habit up until then of starting a book and then abandoning it, which have you experienced that before?
I think every writer has experienced that.
Yeah. So you kind of go. So I thought, no, I'm finishing this, even if it takes me 10 years. Just finish something. Just finish it, because then once you do the first draft, even if you think it's rubbish and it's terrible, you can go back and edit it, can't you? You can go back and rewrite it.
Yes, magic.
Yeah. So on and off, I wrote. I think it took me 4 years. Yeah, it's 4 years. It's over 12,000 words.
Wow. 12,000 words one verse. Okay.
Yeah. And I remember starting writing it, and again, world building. I spent time world building and figuring it all out. And I remember sitting down and writing it. I think I'd written chapter 1, and I was telling a friend in the pub, this is what I'm working on. And they went, "Oh yeah, rhyming dictionaries are great, aren't they?" And I went, "What? A rhyming dictionary? What are you talking about?" And they went, "Yeah, rhyming dictionary. So you can always rhyme something." And I went, "I didn't know about those," because I was thinking, God, this is difficult thinking up. So get yourself a rhyming dictionary if you're thinking of writing poetry.
Yep, there's a good idea. Well,
I didn't know that.
They have dictionaries for all sorts of things these days, so I figured rhyming dictionary is probably, actually these days you just go to the internet.
Yeah, there is that, but what I liked about the writing, I do like tactile. I do like kind of looking at,
absolutely.
Books, and thesauruses and reference books. I've got a whole, loads of shelving full of, writing books, full of, fantasy art, full of reference books, creature companions and mythology books, because what I find is that when you're flicking through a book, you actually stumble across something else, page that will trigger something else.
That is true. However, Google has a problem because their algorithms are wonky-ticky at best, and if you don't have the precise search terms, then they can come up with all sorts of very entertaining alternatives that have absolutely nothing to do with anything that you were searching for. So
that's true.
Yeah, from a linguistic perspective, if you just put in very general search terms, it's hugely entertaining. But tactile books are my favorite. I have 3 linguistic books just sitting on my desk. I've got several more on my bookshelves. And then a whole nother bookshelf. Yeah.
Exactly. And I really love, there's something about going to a secondhand bookshop and just the smell of old books. And I think it's like walking into a treasure cave, because it's like, oh, what can I discover? What's down this little nook? And then you find something. I went to university down in Brighton, which is right on the south coast of England. Right. And it's a lovely, creative seaside town. Mm-hmm. And they had loads of secondhand bookshops. So I used to love going around, just pootling around, looking at secondhand bookshop. My favourite bookshop, though, it was quite a big secondhand bookshop. Mm-hmm. And when you went in, you had books on the shelves, like normal.
Oh yeah.
He also has, I don't know if he's still doing it, but you would have books just stacked up like that. Yeah. Like big columns just all over the place.
And if you wanted the very bottom,
you had to move the whole thing. Exactly. But I love that, because it was just all higgledy-piggledy. It was something out of out of a book, basically. And also, though, it looked really random. So you'd go up to the guy that owned it, and he was always reading, always had his face in a book, and you'd say, I'm looking for a book on, and whatever it was. And he would sort of glance up at you and then go, okay, so it's that, and he'd know exactly where it was, though. He'd go, right, that, and even if it was in a stack of books, he'd go, yeah, that third stack along, and you'd think, how does he know this?
Wow.
Amazing. Yeah, so that's what I like about secondhand books. It's the characters that are in it. It's the sort of the smell of them. It's the sort of discovery.
Yeah.
And so I guess that's why when I write, I love having all my books around, because if I've got an idea, I go, it's like, I need like a creature that flies, but I want to do something different. I don't just want to do a fairy. What can I do? And then I go to my reference books and you look through old ancient creatures or whatever like that, and then sometimes you discover something else. And that's what I found with the rhyming dictionary is I would be trying to rhyme something, and then I'd look it up, and then I would discover other words that rhymed with the thing I was trying to rhyme with, and I think I don't even know what that word is. What's that word? And I then look that up in the dictionary and then go, that actually fits much better than that word would have gone for. Yeah. And so hopefully, I've kind of increased my vocabulary, although I'm terrible at remembering stuff. So.
Well, I mean, relatively speaking, vocabulary has increased. It's in there somewhere.
Yeah, that's true. It's just not where I need it to be all the time. But
yeah, well, that's how the brain works, or doesn't work, perhaps, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah. So for people trying to get into this world of game books and rhyming, Beowulf-style literature, do you have any suggestions or traps that they should avoid?
If you're going to start writing that, I don't know. It's tricky. I guess like anything, that when you actually do something, that's when you discover all the pitfalls yourself, isn't it? Right. I would over the years I have read a lot of how to write books, and then narrowed that down as well. How to write fantasy. So I would suggest read as many of those as you can. There's YouTube tutorials now. In fact, Bottled Imp, after writing my book, I decided to do a 6-part, not how to write fantasy, because I thought, well, who am I to sort of dictate or tell people how to do it, sort of thing, because I do think it's quite a personal journey. But I just thought, actually, this is my own journey. If I share that, then all the hints and tips, and when I started writing out started scripting it, I thought, actually, there's quite a lot I do know that I just didn't think I knew, if you see what I mean. So it managed to be 6 15-minute parts. Wow. And I I talk about world building, I talk about character creation, I talk about structure and plot. And so if you're going to do verse, always have a rhyming dictionary. That would be number one. I quite like to vary my words. So get a thesaurus, because nobody wants repetition, really, unless you're using it specifically for an effect. Right. With game books, I've not actually written a whole game book yet. So my advice so far is, plan out the game mechanics. If you're going to have combat in it, work out how it's going to be combat. Is it that the readers, like Jonathan Green ones, he has, so you roll dice, but he also says, or you can get a pack of playing cards, and if you want a random number, you shuffle them up and pull out a playing card and number. Yeah, so work out. Also on the game books here, these ones. They didn't do it. Oh, okay. This must be a really early edition, because on the later editions, they had little random numbers to sort of represent the 2 dice. So if you didn't have any dice, you could flick through the book and stop it and go, oh, that was a 9. That was a 15 or whatever. Although 6 and 6 only adds up to 12. There you go. Maths. Don't even.
Math is for people who are not necessarily in our field, although maybe I should learn how to do some basic arithmetic at some point.
I've got by so far. It's fine. Yeah. So I would just say, if you I would also watch YouTubers, but if you are going to try and go into a new field, so if you're thinking of writing your own book, your own game book, I would read as many as you can. I've read some of the more modern ones, because you've got different ideas. There's one where it seems very complex. There's quite a lot of stuff going on. It's a bit more like a video game, but a book. So you've got to decide what you like in that genre. And so I thought, actually, I don't want mine to be too complex. I want people just to sort of read a little bit about the rules and then get into the story. Because for me, I guess it's more about the storytelling and the characters, and also the dilemmas. I think whenever you write, always think about what does your reader feel? What are they feeling at this point? And what do you want them to feel? Because that might be two different things.
Well, yes.
So if you want them to feel sad, obviously, have you written something that makes them feel sad? You know, and it, or you know, and I remember playing Skyrim, and there's a few storylines that give you quite a tricky dilemma. So on the one hand, you know, this happens, but it's sort of like a lesser of two evils. You know, it's like you got, but I don't know which one. I like that, and I think that's because it means you're engaged in the story. If you're sort of going, oh, I don't know which one to do. So I would sort of think about the dilemmas and the choices that you're giving the character, giving the reader. Yeah.
And how can you make it worse? You know.
How can you make it work? Oh yeah. How can you kind of crank it up? Is that what you mean?
Yeah. I mean, if you're going to, put these readers in difficult situations, you might as well see how you can make it as bad as possible.
Yeah. Why not?
Alrighty. Well, is there anything else you'd like to add, writing, acting, or otherwise related?
Well, I guess my Patreon, I've just started doing a Patreon.
Yes.
So I guess most people know what Patreon is. It's a way of supporting creative people do their artwork, you know, whatever it is, art, writing, photography. Right. And so I've just opened one of those up, and that was a lot of fun because it's working out again the reward system. Right. So it's nice. Sort of, be giving people things that you're into. So I've got things like I do a live web chat show where I do various different things. That's about an hour and a half. There's a free short story, an exclusive short story to Patreon, again, that's all set in the world of Edra that everybody gets when they join. There's I do a monthly short story as well. That you'll get early. So what I thought I'd do is if I'm doing a monthly short story, and that's exploring the world of Edra and all the characters in it, then after 12 months I've got 12 stories, and I thought I could then release those on release those as a nice little collection. So I thought that was good. And the other thing that we're doing is we're doing a pubcast.
I'm sorry, a pubcast? As in the pub?
Exactly. It's a podcast in a pub. A pubcast, you see?
I like it. I've done there? There you go. Well done.
Yeah. So, and again, I like to really get into interviews because for the Bottled Imp YouTube channel, our interviews tend to be like anywhere from 20 minutes to half an hour, and I always found that was really short.
Yeah.
Whereas I think podcasts can be a bit longer because people go jogging or they listen to them when they're commuting. So, if you've got an hour and a half to fill. So I've been interviewing creative people. I know a lot of actors and writers and video game makers. And, so I've been interviewing. So far, I've done 2 actors and a writer, another fancy writer. And so what I'm doing is, so if you're part of the Patreon, you'll get early access to it. So you'll get it a month early, and then I'm going to be launching it out into the world. But I've just sort of put them out on the Tales from Edra website.
Right.
You can check out episode 1, and that's a lot of fun. So if you go to Patreon, which is www.patreon.com/krboyter, which is basically my name, then people can support me there. And basically, because I just kind of need time. That's what it is. You need time.
Yeah.
At the moment, I'm having to sort of divide my time to earn money elsewhere.
Right.
When all I want to do is write and do, my YouTube stuff and be creative, And I think it's quite important because if you are a creative person, I've found in the past when I've not had the opportunity to be creative, I get very depressed. I don't know if you're the same.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So
it's difficult. You just have to do it. Yeah.
For the podcast, I've been doing sort of the interviews on a podcast system as well, and the Anchor.fm allows you to put it up, and they then distribute it to all of the other places, and they connect you with sponsors, so that if you want to say, oh yes, this video is or podcast is sponsored by so and so, then you can make money that way as well, if you're interested.
Yeah, that's anchor.com, did you say?
Anchor.fm.
Oh, FM.
Yes. They're trying to be clever, but...
Yeah. Well, that's funny you should say about the sponsors, because what I've done is I've got a friend of mine, Colin, who I said to him, he's quite a good sense of humour, a similar sense of humour to me. And I said, do you mind writing some fake fantasy adverts? So what I've done is I've recorded these fake fantasy adverts, and every now and again I say, so we're just going to take a little bit of break now as we go to our sponsors, and then I cut in like a fake fantasy advert.
Very fun. Yeah. Always good. All right, well, thank you so much for coming on and talking. It's been absolutely fascinating. I'm now going to go read probably your book and be talking in verse for the rest of the day. It's going to be problematic.
Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure. It's been good fun. Thank you.